Welcome to Cheese in Depth. I'm Michael Landis, and today it's sponsored by the Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin. We really appreciate their support and, of course, loving Wisconsin cheeses. Today, I'm very fortunate to be able to speak with a master cheesemaker, not just a master, 12 master cheesemaker certificates. So really cool. I'm really looking forward to hearing Bruce, and I'm going to stop talking here and turn it over to Bruce. Bruce.
Well, welcome. So I'm Bruce Workman. I started my career in 1971, working in a cheese factory. Quick story, I ran out of gas one night and I walked into the guy's house and he looked at me and he said, you're the preacher's kid, your dad's a preacher in town. I said, yeah. He said, you looking for a job? And I said, yeah. He said, you'll start making cheese on Monday morning at 4 o'clock before school, you got it. Well, I did, and here I am all these years later. I became a licensed cheesemaker in 1972. I actually worked at the co-op for 18 years, my first factory, and I bought it, ran it for a while. Times got tough. Co-ops were falling apart a little bit in Wisconsin, and so they were merging. So I worked for some big boys. I started my master program in 1996, became a master in 1999. For my first two, and that's why I was working for Emmy Roth in Monroe. Went to school. Well, I went through the course 7 times. Now I have 12 titles as a Wisconsin Master Cheesemaker. Started out with Alpine styles, Gruyere, Raclette. Did the Emmental, Swiss cheese. I do baby Swiss, lacy Swiss, Havarti, Butterkase, Muenster, Gouda. What else? I'm trying to think, there's so many. Brick and cheddar. Yeah, end up with something that's fun to make. So that's where I stand. I worked for some large boys, like I said. I worked for Roy's Dairy, which became Adamore. Worked at the Roth Case plant in Monroe for 10 years. But in 2003, my wife and I decided that we needed to do something different, and there was a factory just down the road from our house that had closed, and I worked very closely with the cheesemaker Albert Deppler. I call him the godfather of cheesemakers in Greene County. He was the manager of the Chalet Cheese Co-op for over 40 years, and I asked Albert if the plant would be for sale, and he looked at me and he said, well, you know, show me a business plan. Well, so I'm coming from a large plant that produced all this Gruyere and wonderful Alpine style cheeses, and I drew something up for him, and he said, all right, we'll give you a chance. So I bought the plant, really reasonable, but it was condemned, so we put a ton of money into it. But in 6 months, I bought it in August 3rd, on April 2nd of 2004, we started production. Emmy was at Roth Case was actually my first customer, and we've stayed with them off and on through all the times. And my son Ben joined our business, our cheese factory, 8 years ago. He was a microbiologist and chemist, and he decided that he wanted to come back and join the business. So he is now the plant manager and the head cheesemaker, and Dad gets to watch the business grow through the eyes of a younger child, which is really fun, although he still makes me come to work every morning at 3 o'clock. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we do. We do quite a few varieties in our facility. We actually think about 35. We're a small batch operation. Our biggest batch is 16,000 pounds of milk. But we can do pretty much anything in our facility except for white molds or blue molds. We don't want to mess with any chance of contamination. Just a safety factor. So yeah, that's pretty much about where we are. I guess we did start the plant making the large Swiss wheels. You'll see a picture of me later with a wheel. When I put the plant together, the owner of Roth Case, Felix Roth, I gave him my tenure, and I said, I want to make Swiss cheese like I started out making, but I don't want to do all the labor. I'm getting too old for that. And he actually called me back before I'd even bought the factory and said, hey, I've got all the equipment. It's really cool. And I said, I can't do it because I haven't bought the building. But 2 weeks later, the Master Cheesemaker School in Switzerland closed. They had 3 of them. They were going through some changes. And so I bought the Master Cheesemaker School and brought it over and set up my plant. So I have a 10,500 pound copper vat made in 1981 and a press that will make 4 wheels of Swiss at one time, which is pretty awesome. As long as you have a place to age the cheese out, it goes really well. So we were an ACS winner with that cheese, and with the rest of our cheeses, I mean, not to brag, but we do pretty good. We just won gold medal this year with our Dill Havarti at the World Contest, but our plain Havarti's won gold. Butterkase's won gold. Muenster's won gold. It's hard work and it's dedication and it's a commitment. It's a lifestyle. But if you enjoy it, I always tell people, if you don't like it, get out. If you like it, stay with it. And I really enjoy it. And I like the time that I spend with my family and the time that I spend with my employees. I mean, I've got a small staff, but they're great people to work with. So that's all about me. Let's talk about the Master Cheesemaker program a little bit. So the state of Wisconsin, and I was in the 2nd graduating class, I believe. The state of Wisconsin started a Master Cheesemaker program to give more credibility to the cheesemakers that we already have. You have to be a licensed cheesemaker in Wisconsin, and we're the only state that requires a licensed cheesemaker to be in the plant all the time. I think we're the only state that requires a cheesemaker to be licensed all the time while you're manufacturing cheese, from the processing of the milk at the beginning to the finished product at the end. And you have to be a licensed cheesemaker for 10 years. What that does is that pretty much guarantees that as a cheesemaker, you worked milk intake, you worked the brine room, you worked sanitation, you can run the vats, you know enough through training by your former cheesemakers that you can make an adjustment on the fly while making the cheese that's going to keep the same quality and standards that you expect on a daily basis. So once you're at that point of tenure, you can join the program or apply to get in the program, and you can only apply for 2 cheeses at a time. And again, that's sponsored by the Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin and the Wisconsin Cheesemaker Association and the Center for Dairy Research. Once you're applied into it, there is a exam given to you by a master cheesemaker and the head of the organization. And what they're doing, they're just asking you questions. It's a one-on-one to see if you really know what you're talking about. They want to make sure that, you know, it's just not all push button, that you still have the artisan factor in the job of making cheese. And I've sat on that board a couple times, and as the cheesemaker, our job, because a lot of these guys, and like myself, I didn't go to college, only went to college for my master's cheesemaking school and the classes I took to become a licensed cheesemaker. The layman's term is different than the collegiate terms. So we bring it down to layman's terms for the cheesemakers, and they understand a lot better, and it kind of relaxes them a little bit. When that's done, then we do a plant audit to make sure that, you know, the plant's got good hygiene practices. It's got good SOPs. We want to make sure that the product that's going to come out, again, is going to represent Wisconsin and not have any issues. And then we go back to the schooling. You have 3 years to complete the schooling. You can start the schooling much earlier before you start the program, because they don't want you to have to leave your job to go to class all the time. And you know, you have to take the basic cheese making course sponsored by University of Wisconsin-Madison. There's cheese grading course, milk quality class. There's a marketing class to help you market your products. Then there's some artisan classes like cheeses of Switzerland or cheeses of Spain or cheeses of France or the Netherlands. You can take all these up, and you have to take the 5 required, and I'm thinking now, sorry, but I think it's 5 elective. Not quite sure on that. Over a 3-year period, again, starting sooner if you have to. And then during that process, also every year, they test your cheese to make sure that it meets the analytical requirements that you have told in your request to be a member or be a master cheesemaker, and that it stays within the requirements. And then of course that it's got, you know, no microorganisms or anything else in it. They want to make sure that it's going to represent Wisconsin again well, and you well as a master cheesemaker when it goes out to the public. And then finally, at the end of all this 3 years of grueling work, there is a take-home exam, and they send it to you and they give you 30 days to complete it. And it's 40 to 60 hours of paperwork, tracing back, following through, making sure that everything's there, your recipe, how you take care of the cheese, how you affinage it at the end. And then it goes in front of the board. The exams are reviewed, it goes in front of the board of directors, and then you are given your opportunity to become a master. The cheese tasting end of it, actually you have to send 4 samples of every cheese, and every year 3 out of those 4 samples have to pass. Otherwise you get a chance to retake them one more time. So yeah, it's pretty grueling. Like I said, I have 12 titles. There were 2 times I only got 1 cheese, so there's a lot of school involved. But you know, it's worth it. I enjoy it. Like I said, if you don't like it, don't do it. And I just like the opportunity. So here I stand in the kitchen of the Wisconsin Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin, talking to you all. And Michael, do you have anything you need me to go to now?
Well, that was really helpful, understanding the direction and where you're going with that. And I really appreciate you taking the time to explain that to us. As again, most of us are unaware of what you have to do. So really cool, thank you. So let's talk about, you know, cheese isn't cheese without milk. So talk about your support systems and where you get your milk.
So because I own the facility, my wife and I own it, I do not have farmers that are patrons at my facility. We buy our milk through a dairy cooperative. It's called Rolling Hills. And as it says, you know, 96% of Wisconsin farms are family owned. And this is one of the families that supplies us with our milk. They do a pastured cow, so they have brown Swiss in their herd, which really helps out making cheese. I love the extra fat in there. It makes really great cheese. And you can see they get lush grass every day. And then I have another farmer that's coming up. You'll see a family farm on the next photo, the Banner Farm. They also do brown Swiss. But Rolling Hills is a large cooperative, both from big family farms to small family farms. They do both Holstein milk, they do Jersey milk, they do brown Swiss. Depending on where your milk comes from and how it's put together, you know, obviously we have to make our adjustments into the cheese making process. We also at our co-op, our factory, we do a lot of small makes for local farms. So we have, I don't know if y'all know of Horde's Dairy. They're out of Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. They have Jersey herds. They've contacted us, and we bring in their milk and make cheese only with their milk. We do a Bel Air, which is a Port Salut style for them, and we do a Manchego that we've just started that's in the works, and hopefully soon we can get into some Alpine styles. Still waiting for the aging facility to get completed. So, you know, I try to work. I mean, I still know all the farmers in my area. Obviously, we go down and have a beer together, and we see them downtown, and I see them in the street. We're all concerned with milk price like everybody is. We want to see them survive because without the dairy farms, I can't survive. And yeah, so we all pay a lot of attention together talking. And like I say, I've been in business so long that I'm seeing farmers that I started with, their generation, their sons that are my age and their children now taking over some of these farms. So it's pretty cool.
Do you use different milks or mixes for your cheeses, or do you blend? How do you work with your milks?
Well, we do a line of grass-based products. So on that milk, it actually comes in. Most of them are brown Swiss and Holsteins, and I just got to monitor the fat content and protein coming in, because if I don't, my cheese isn't going to turn out right. So I have to standardize by removing milk or removing cream. If it's just a Holstein loads coming in, I can just use the milk straight and then adjust and then make a little bit accordingly. Again, it's all, the cheesemaker needs to know what's coming in, because I really don't have total control over the type of milk that comes in. It's what they have available at the time. So they just kind of keep me up on it, and we work with them and monitor through the process.
Do you have a favorite milk?
Ooh, you know, that's a hard one. I mean, because I work with different people, I can't say that one is really better than the other. I mean, the way the farmers are working right now and doing the rationing of the feed, that, you know, obviously if I want a high fat milk, I'll go with the brown Swiss or the Jersey or Guernsey. But, you know, for me to make just a simple cheese without, not a simple cheese, but just to make a cheese without a whole lot of complications and having to worry about balance, again, Holstein is just a nice one to work with because it's fairly consistent.
So what type of cheeses are we talking about for the type of milk? Do you make different cheeses accordingly?
Well, on the grass-based round, that's been a blend of brown Swiss and Holstein, because that, and actually I had a bunch of farmers that had some Normandies mixed in too. It was really great milk to work with, really good yields. We did have to standardize quite a bit to get the fat and protein levels correct. But we were able to take that cream and make butter out of it through another factory, which was really good for the farmer's market. So we got a little extra, added value out of it. But right now, with the way our business is during these troubled times, we're just doing the semi-soft varieties. So it's, you know, Holstein milk is just fine. And I'm not having to pay the extra for the grass-based line of products, you know, because it costs a little more to have a cow out on pasture. It's a good quality milk, don't get me wrong, but it's that added value that it's hard to afford during these times. So, well, I guess I can say that our creamery is still one of the oldest one in the States that's still operational. Even though when I bought it, it was condemned. Albert had left the license alive, the DNR permit alive. So my factory number is 188. So out of all the factories in Wisconsin, I've still got a pretty low number. It's kind of cool. We're still there.
That's great. That's great.
These are slab farms. We actually, because I'm not doing too much pressed cheese right now. I'm doing a little bit of Gouda. A little bit of sweet Swiss, a little bit of Asiago, but majority of our forms are put into a hoop, a stainless steel hoop, and then they're flipped. So these are actually slabs. What you're seeing here is I actually do a low-fat product for a customer that then shreds it. And the cheese had just been put into these hoops, and it's now all handwork. Flip them over. It takes about 2 hours on the table to push them around and flip them over and get the water out of them to bring the moisture content down to where we want. So yeah, we are, like I say, we're a small plant. We're not automated a lot. It's definitely hands-on. We do both 9-pounders, we do 5-pounders. These are loaves. We do a 9-pound Havarti loaf, we do a 5-pound Muenster, a 5-pound brick and Butterkase. We do a 12-pound Long John form, which is made for slicing for food service. Slabs are typically made for shred, although I do have a couple customers that like the long slice that you get out of it because it's 8 inches long. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I've got hoops for pretty much any occasion. It's all based on what the customer wants. It's driven, so.
Do you have a favorite cheese that you like to make?
Swiss, because it's the hardest cheese to make. If you make an Emmental, excuse me, if you make an Emmental, you know, the way we do it, we take 8,400 pounds of milk, skim it the right ratio, fat protein, it's in a copper kettle. We have to cook it and stir it and wash it and everything in that kettle, and then we pump it into a wheel form, which weighs 180, 200 pounds. The next morning it comes out, it goes into the brine. It's 2 days in the brine, 5 days in the cooler, 60 to 90 days in the warm room. And maybe after 3 or 4 months, if you plug it, you might find out if you have something good or not, but all that time you've had your money spent not knowing if it's good, bad, or indifferent. So it's not like making a Butterkase or a Muenster that the next day you've got the analyticals and it's ready to go. It just takes time. And, you know, I like making soft cured cheeses, but I really like the challenge of making something that takes the skill to run. I mean, I used to make Gruyere at Rothgase, and you know, there you're talking 3-month minimum, a year better, 2 years even best, and it takes the hands-on and the commitment of you and the employee to make sure it's going to happen. So it's always a challenge. Yeah, those are the master marks. That picture was taken last January, I think, when I had 11. Was supposed to receive number 12 with Bel Paese in March, but obviously COVID shut that down, and they're going to give it to us next year. We don't care. We can get it next year. We're still got the title. We just didn't get the medal for it. Like I say, I started out with those medals with Gruyere and Baby Swiss because I was working at Rothgase in Monroe. Then I went to Raclette and Butterkase, and then Havarti, and I'm missing something in there. I was going to get Lacy Swiss, Havarti and Lacy Swiss, but I couldn't get Lacy Swiss because it was trademarked. So I just got one. And then I went back and got cheddar and Gouda when I went to my own plant. I got brick and Muenster at my own plant. I got specialty Swiss, which is the Lacy Swiss. I got the Emmental at my plant, and then and Gouda, and then I got the Bel Paese. So that covers all 12. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean,
Grandmaster cheese.
yeah, and yeah, you talk about accolades. I guess my wife just mentioned, says in 2000, I think now 2005, I believe it was, I was the Wisconsin Grandmaster Cheesemaker, which is the best cheesemaker in the state. Mike Manchesky's won it numerous times from Sartori. He's a great cheesemaker. And then my cheesemaker that was under me won it the next year. So we actually won it 2 years back to back at Rothgase. And then, yeah, I mean, the World Contest, the ACE, American Cheese Society, Greene County Fair, State Fair, U.S. Championship Cheese Contest. Yeah, we do pretty good. It's humbling to win. It's great to win. It's humbling to lose. Let's put it that way. And I'm talking losing. I don't think second, third, fourth, or fifth or bad at all. We've got those ribbons too. It's just, you know, you can't win every time, and there's always cheesemakers out there, and it keeps you on your toes because, you know, everybody wants to do their best, and it's up to the judges. I mean, you can think you have a great piece of cheese, and it may not be so great according to the guy that's looking at it. So it's a subjective game. Well, we are not an automated plant. Like I said, we are hands-on. Our production day starts about 1 o'clock in the morning. You won't see much automation in our facility at all, except for our pasteurizer, which is push button. But other than that, when we make the cheese, we do open vats. I actually had enclosed vats for my son, and he says I can't do that because the cheese will be different from vat to vat, open and closed. So I sold them. We just like the fact that what we do and the skill it takes to run open vats and make the cheese consistently is our livelihood.